He held a gun to my wife right on our porch in broad daylight in front of the neighbors. No interrogation, no justifiable reason, just because my wife refused to tear down the fence he considered offensive. A self-proclaimed head of neighborhood security wearing a uniform he bought online, swaggering around like the law was tucked in his back pocket. I used to think scenes like that only happened in movies. Corrupt authority, somebody's hands tied behind their back, the threat hanging in the air. But when you see it play out in your own front yard with someone you love on the line, something in you just snaps. He pushed the wrong people that day, and when the silence finally broke, let's just say, the story didn't end the way he'd planned. 2 years ago, my wife Sarah and I moved to Oakwood Heights. We wanted that so-called peaceful life after years of stressful work, city noise, all the stuff that wears you down. Sarah, 37, told neighbors she was a fitness consultant at a military facility nearby, and I, Mike Thompson, 42, civil engineer, 18 years, building all sorts of things, was just happy to have some grass under my feet. For a while, it felt like we'd made it. Neighbors waved. Derek Morrison, the local cop and self-appointed HOA neighborhood safety president, acted like our biggest fan. He helped fix our water pipe, complimented Sarah on her landscaping, even introduced us at weekend barbecues, the model couple he called us. And having a police cruiser in his driveway made the street feel safe. People loved to remind us how lucky we were to have a real cop living right next door. But that changed and fast. We decided to replace our rickety old fence with a 6-foot wrought iron one. City permits. Got 'em. Surveys did those. Notices to the neighbors. You bet. The city said 8 feet was the legal limit, so we stayed at 6. No drama, right? Wrong. Derek's friendly waves turned into stone-cold glares, arms crossed, standing in his yard watching our contractors like a hawk. His wife Linda started power walking past our place with her dog eyes glued to the sidewalk, acting like a quick high might get her arrested for association. Then one evening, Derek came to our door in his uniform polo, but all that neighborly charm was gone. Mike, would you consider lowering the fence to 4 feet? It blocks my kitchen view of the street. I explained about Sarah working from home, the privacy, all that. He forced a smile. As a representative of the HOA, we should prioritize community harmony. It was the first time I'd ever heard him claim any actual authority outside of organizing the annual block party. A week later, we got a letter in the mailbox. Heavy paper embossed seal, some law firm's letterhead, demanding we lower the fence or get fined $500 a day. Sarah was in the backyard working out like a Navy SEAL, not even winded, wearing her black athletic gear. I noticed a little pin on her collar. Military, maybe? She just shook her head when I showed her the letter. They can't do this, she said, calm as ever. We have all the permits. She sounded so sure it made me pause. I called the law firm. The receptionist had never heard of us, hadn't sent any letters. Someone forged that document, which is a federal crime. The woman on the phone sounded genuinely worried and asked me to send her a copy. That night, Sarah was quiet, checking her phone, stepping out for work calls she couldn't discuss. Something about her voice made me uneasy, a tension I hadn't heard before. Then Derek started spreading rumors. We were uncooperative, challenging community values. Folks who used to chat at the mailbox now crossed the street to avoid us. Anonymous notes appeared on our windshield. Please work with the community, or don't be an outsider. It felt like a coordinated campaign. Derek had people writing in different hands. Meanwhile, Sarah was on more calls using jargon I didn't recognize. Watching her through the window, she'd stand in perfect posture, almost military. Something was clicking for me that hadn't before. She'd scan every room we entered, always sat where she could see the exits, her movements precise, economical. For someone supposedly into fitness, she moved like someone trained for far more. Then came Derek's emergency HOA meeting on our sidewalk right in front of our house. 20 neighbors gathered. Derek, holding a neighborhood security chairman sign, pointed at our fence like it was a crime scene. The Thompsons refused to comply with community standards, he announced as if he was judge and jury. A fence that high could hide suspicious activities. Sarah watched from inside, eyes flicking over every person in the crowd, making notes. Suddenly, Derek blurted out, I've conducted a background investigation. Sarah Thompson works at a classified military facility. Her job's confidential. The crowd buzzed. People stepped back. Derek leaned into the fear. We could be living next to a national security threat. That was the moment I realized Derek didn't want compliance, he wanted control, and he'd go as low as needed to get it. A week later, Derek showed up with 2 men in police uniforms. We've had reports of suspicious late-night activities and possible weapons. He said, fake sympathy on his face, hand on his service weapon. Your wife needs to cooperate with a security inspection. Sarah, in her black athletic uniform, calmly replied, happy to cooperate. But I'd like to see a search warrant and legal basis for this. Derek hesitated, then blustered, I'm a police officer. I don't need paperwork for a neighborhood check. Sarah didn't flinch. Every law enforcement action needs proper documentation. I'm sure you know that. Derek's mask was slipping, frustration turning to anger. I looked at Sarah. Her posture changed, alert, ready like a soldier about to act. That night, Sarah finally sat me down. Mike, I'm not just a fitness consultant, she said, holding my gaze. I'm Senior Chief Petty Officer Sarah Thompson. I train Navy SEALs at the Naval Special Warfare Center. My mind spun. 18 years military, 12 with special operations. She was assigned here to develop training protocols for SEALs. The job was classified. Derek's background check had triggered red flags with military intelligence. He'd accessed something he had no right to. Either he had inside help or he was running a scam. Sarah started her own investigation using skills I didn't know she had. She dug up databases, called in contacts with no names, analyzed Derek's patterns. Turns out Officer Morrison wasn't even listed with San Diego County PD. His badge was a high-end fake. The HOA security chairman role didn't exist. The real HOA board hadn't met in 2 years. Derek's real name was Derek Mitchell, ex-private security fired for abuse, sued by families in 2 states, moved west after legal trouble. Wannabe cop, serial impersonator. We tried to file a police report, but before we could, Derek appeared with 3 real officers, accusing us of making false evidence, trying to flip the script. The officer with him seemed to believe it, at least for a minute. That night, Derek's wife Linda showed up, wringing her hands. I can't stay quiet. Derek's not a real cop. We left Phoenix after he got caught impersonating. She offered proof, but a few days later I overheard her on the phone. They bought the story. Sarah's sharing her plan. Linda was part of the scam. She was feeding Derek everything. That's when Sarah called in the cavalry. She reached out to Captain James Rodriguez, ex-teammate, now FBI. He confirmed Derek Mitchell had priors for impersonating officers and intimidating families, running this scam in multiple states. Rodriguez agreed to help. Sarah set up surveillance around our property, invisible but military grade. They caught Derek on tape planning to force out more families, raise HOA fees, and run a big real estate fraud scheme, buy low, flip high, using threats and fake authority. Operation Disclosure, Sarah called it. She invited every neighbor to an emergency HOA meeting, Derek front and center, under the pretense of settling the fence issue. Derek showed up smug as ever, Linda in tow. Sarah stood calm and ready, black blazer, full command of the room. Derek, could you show us your official police ID number? She asked innocently. Derek faltered. That's sensitive information, he claimed. Sarah pulled up the county police roster. No Derek Morrison. Then she showed the receipt for his fake badge delivered to his house 8 months prior. Derek tried to shout her down, accused her of fabricating evidence, but Sarah kept her cool. He's Derek Mitchell, she told the crowd. 4 arrests for impersonating an officer. She showed his mugshot and criminal record on the screen. The neighbors finally saw what we'd been up against. Derek snapped, pulled a gun, pointed it at Sarah, yelling about her being a threat to national security. People screamed, kids ducked chaos, except for Sarah. She moved fast as lightning disarmed Derek, zip-tied him, read his rights all before anybody could blink. The crowd went from terrified to cheering. Someone had live-streamed the whole thing, and minutes later, real cops rolled in, led by Detective Maria Santos and Captain Rodriguez. Rodriguez thanked Sarah. You just gave us what we needed to close this case. But as they led Derek away, he smirked. You think it's over? You were targeted. There are people who want military families gone, and they'll find another way. The FBI uncovered a multi-state network targeting military families, forcing them to sell at a loss, even causing $15 million in damages. Derek and Linda both went to prison. The feds passed the Derek Mitchell Act, making it easier to verify police credentials, upping penalties for impersonation. Sarah was asked to help shape national policy for protecting military families. Our neighborhood transformed. We created a rotating oversight board, passed transparency rules. Folks who'd been scared now spoke up. Somebody even nominated Sarah for HOA president. She turned it down, happy to serve on the committee, telling everyone leadership is about empowering others, not having power over them. That became our unofficial motto. 6 months later, we threw our first Unity Day games, Food Laughter. The playground was built using funds Derek tried to steal. Kids begged Sarah for self-defense lessons. She taught them awareness, confidence, courage. That old 6-foot fence, still there, but now it's a symbol of dignity, not division. Standing out back, I asked Sarah if she ever regretted revealing her secrets. She just pointed to the new sign, Oakwood Heights, a community protected by truth and unity, and said sometimes secrets are necessary, but sometimes you have to speak the truth to protect the people you love. As kids ran by yelling, "Miss Sarah, will you show us more moves tomorrow?" I realized the real story wasn't about a fence or a fraud. It was about what happens when ordinary people stand up to intimidation and defend their community together. So now it's your turn. What would you have done? Where do you draw the line between keeping the peace and standing up for what's right? Drop your thoughts below, because if there's one thing I learned, it's that justice starts with regular folks refusing to back down.